Okay everybody, this is the last lower unit that I'll be doing custom in my history since 2009 of building lower units. So I call it a boutique lower unit. I've done some others and they're located around the country. So this is the last one, and what you're looking at is an Evinrude Magnum M2 lower unit. 186 gears, right hand rotation. The prep work on this was labor intensive. So the very first thing that happens is the whole case gets glass beaded. All of the old remnants of paint come off that case, and it's down to just a virgin aluminum gear case. From there, I try to address any scratches or pits that are in the aluminum from somebody hitting something or just a ding, and I fill those in and properly do everything. Prep it for paint, block sand, and so on and so forth. And then from there, the first step, the same day of primer coat, there is a mild etching compound that goes on there. It's the same stuff that welders use on aluminum. And what it does is it cuts through the aluminum oxide layer that will develop on the surface of aluminum. So we get it all dried off, get it plugged off. I put dummy cover, shift cover on. I put dummy upper bearing cover inside. Put a dummy carrier in there. And then this carrier gets hung from a hanger wire and painted. And the whole lower unit gets PPG epoxy primer. I think, as I recall, I usually do about 3 to 4 coats of primer. And from there, the same day, 3 to 4 hours later, the lower unit got its color, which is General Motors Brilliant Silver Metallic. And again, it is all catalyst cure paint, professional paints. From there, last year, I dropped it off with a custom painter who I've known my whole life, Cliff Anderson Jr. His website is known as stripesnpipes.com. So put an N in there. stripesnpipes.com. That's Cliff's website. And I got on my computer one night and I was thinking, okay, what would be cool that equates to the marine world? Let's do Silver Surfer. Let's get a surfing scene put on this last lower unit. And I found a website that I was able to describe what I wanted and let the AI actually create the scene, the reference image that I could give Cliff. And from that reference image, over the winter when he had time, he airbrushed this on here. It's all Kosmowski House of Color paints that he uses. He uses enamel paints as far as all of his airbrush work and his line work, and then over that, Kosmowski House of Color Catalyst Cure Clear. So everything is well protected. So far, the reports I get from my customers that have these, the paint is all intact on all the lower units. One of the gentlemen has my Lightning lower unit on the back of a bass boat. He's out every weekend. He's been doing this for about 1.5 years now. And he reports to me that the paint is completely intact. When he road tows it, he puts a bag over the lower unit so he doesn't get any chips in it. He really takes care of his stuff. So I'm impressed with Kevin, the way that he takes care of his stuff. I've got another customer out on the Missouri River. He owns Donald and Daisy Duck. And that lower unit's in good shape, and he fishes for catfish out there. So he's in a very dirty river full of debris, and everything is holding up. So I'm 69 years old. I'm building a new house down in southern Minnesota, and I decided that no longer will I be building any more lower units. I scrapped all the empty housings that I own, 1,700 pounds of empty housings, and made the strong decision that this will be the last lower unit that I do. So one lucky person is going to have probably the rarest lower unit on the planet as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to walk over and try to describe to you what I did for the rebuild internally. All of my lower unit stuff like this gets painted prior to even getting any internals whatsoever. So I'm going to walk over there and turn on the turntable and just let it go around. We'll slow it down here. So, internally, the company that Evinrude uses for all the bearings is Koyo USA. Koyo USA is the company that used to be Timken, essentially, and then Torrington was the spin-off of that. And they're now Koyo USA down in Carolinas. They also have a plant overseas. So every single bearing on here is Koyo. And I'll stop this here and I'll describe to you what is inside here for bearings. So, starting at the bottom, up in front here is what's called a shift carrier. There's a bearing, round bearing there that the collar of the forward gear fits into. That bearing is new. There's a thrust bearing and a race that it rides against. All your forward thrust of your propeller is locked into the shaft, which is locked into that forward gear, pushing forward on that radial thrust bearing right up here. So that's a radial thrust bearing and race. The carrier that goes in here, there's another thrust bearing and race for the reverse gear that handles the backward pull when you're in reverse. It's a radial thrust bearing handling the reverse thrust. There's also another collar bearing to handle the collar of that reverse gear here. Then there's a new pinion bearing located right down in here, about right here. That's about an $80 part just for that one bearing. And that is probably the highest loaded bearing in the entire lower unit because of the helical gear cut and the drive shaft. That bearing always has a load to one side, always pulling to one side. Then we go up the drive shaft that's in there, and there is a upper thrust bearing and race. Because of the helical force, the drive shaft naturally wants to push up. So that thrust bearing up here handles that upward thrust. And then the shaft has an index at the top, and that bearing is Ina, it's German, and it is located in what's called the upper bearing carrier. And above that carrier are two seals. And those are OEM seals. Shift cover, there's O-ring, a shaped O-ring for the shift cover on a Magnum M2. That's new. New O-rings in the cover, obviously. And back in the aft end, we also have a prop shaft bearing located right here where my tip of my finger is. And behind that we have two seals back to back, again OEM seals. We have an O-ring here, which is just a stabilizing O-ring, and we have a sealing O-ring up front, sealing and keeping intact all your gear lube. Now I want people to understand something that I've tried to educate people as much as I can. If you've ever driven down the road and you see an upward motor on a boat and you see the prop kind of whirring around in the wind, the lip of this little seal here on the prop shaft is rotating completely dry. There is no lubrication on that seal whatsoever, even during the engine's operation, because you have hot exhaust gas coming out through here and you have forward motion. So your outer seal on a prop shaft is 80% of the time, this is the seal that gets compromised from fishing line or just neglect, and will be the first one to start leaking after years of use. That's how water gets in, because the seal lips face out on the prop shaft. When water tries to come in, it puts pressure on those lips and can't get in. The seal behind it, the lips are facing in to the gear lube. Because it's gear lube, those seal lips are constantly getting lubricated. But if this seal gets compromised, it's easy for water to go in and just lift the lips of those seals as the lower unit cools down at the dock. Maybe you're done boating for a while. It cools down and it creates a little low pressure and pulls water in. So always tow your boat with the engine in gear to keep the prop from rotating. So not many people realize that when you're running a boat and you're up on plane going across some body of water, that outer seal is running bone dry. In between these two seals goes Teflon grease, and that's just a standard procedure that I use to help try to get some lubrication to this to get longevity out of that seal. If you're an active boater, every weekend you're down in a place like Florida where people boat year-round, I want your seals redone every 3 years, 3 calendar years. Up here in Minnesota, pretty much the boats get put away for half of the year. 3 to 5 years is a good practice to get into. And as far as gear lube, every season, regardless, every season the lower unit gear lube gets changed. For the people in the cold climates, a good time to change your gear lube is at the end of your season when you're getting ready to put your boat away. Go ahead and drop your plugs, drain it. That's going to tell you if you have any metal shavings, if you have any water in your gear lube, you'll know it right away. Now you have all winter to get that addressed so you're ready in the spring. For the people in warmer climates using them year-round, just try to do a gear lube change once a year. And the gear lube that I recommend is, actually I'll grab it here. This is the gear lube to run in these things. Mercury's synthetic gear lube is made by, I believe, Mobile, is what I found out. It's 100% synthetic. It's going to be a black bottle, white panel, S8090, high performance. This is all synthetic gear lube, 100%. It comes out winter green color. So that's what you're going to use. Let's see, what's the other thing? When you put this on your boat, and you're going to fill it with lube, in the carrier for the prop shaft, which is about that long, there's a hollow cavity where the prop shaft goes through. There's a hollow cavity there that's going to have some gear lube in it. That gear lube takes time to pass by the thrust bearing and the collar bearing and work its way in there. So when you pump your lower units full of gear lube and pump them up to where you see it starting to come out here, that cavity's still got air in it, and the gear lube's going to settle. The upper thrust bearing up here relies on a good level of lube in this lower unit. The lower drive shaft's got an aerator pump in it, which naturally works the lower unit up through a passage and gets it up here. But if it's too low, you're going to not get adequate lubrication up high. So I tell people to put their gear lube in and take your lower unit down about a degree. Come in on the trim a little bit, so this is sitting a little bit in. That way the air naturally wants to come up out of those crevices and up, and the gear lube naturally will go in. So once you've done that, go have a cup of coffee, go have lunch, come back, and you'll see you'll get more pumps out of your thing. And then put your top plug in first, and get your thing off, put your bottom plug in. You don't have to crank them tight. It's a 3/8 inch 16 thread. Just a nice firm grip. And that's how you properly fill them. But let me just run around and we'll let it spin around. I'm not putting a trim tab on it because most of the bigger boats are hydraulic steering and they run a plate right here. And of course, one of my things is the prop shaft has to be perfectly straight, which it is. So Cliff did a good job. And admittedly, I have one little run there. Yeah, one little run right there. I take ownership of everything I do. And I thought I saw a run somewhere else on this, somewhere. Pretty hard to see. Yeah, right here. You can see it right there. Just a little double. You could razor blade it off, but it's already cleared over anyway. So, and like I said, this is a used case that at one time had a bad set of gears, and this has got new gears in it, all new bearings. Everything's been checked over. And I've been building lower units for many, many years. So, since I'm outside most of my life, doing stuff called mowing the yard and yard work and everything else, building a new house. I'm not near a computer most of my days. If you have a question, I think the best thing to do is probably just, just give me a call on the phone the old-fashioned way. My name is Greg, and my number is 612-759-7980. I'm doing this on Saturday, Memorial Day weekend. We'll have this up tonight. Thank you.